Tea and Compliments, written by Eternal Love Song. It had taken Shuichi a while to get used to his classmates at Hope's Peak. They were wacky and loud a lot of the time, and Shuichi had felt like he would never get used to things in the beginning. Now, a couple months into the school year, he felt like he had a better grasp on things. He knew that if he stayed in the classroom for lunch, he was less likely to be bothered than his classmates. He knew that if he wanted to sit outside, he needed to be one of the first ones out the door if he wanted to get a good spot. He knew which places his classmates frequented and where to go if he wanted their company or wanted to avoid it. It was a little hectic, a little loud, but Shuichi enjoyed it. Today, he decided to stay in the classroom for lunch. It was easier to get lost in a book when he stayed in the relative seclusion of the classroom, and even when others stayed, they didn't usually bother him. He didn't think today would be any different until he saw that Kaede had opted to stay in the classroom with him. This wasn't the first time that he had been alone with Kaede, but he had never fully found a way to relax around her. She was so pretty and lit up when she smiled, and Shuichi turned into the most awkward version of himself whenever he was alone with her. He tried to hide himself in his book, hoping that would distract him from the need to talk. That plan was blown out the window when, barely a chapter in, Kaede came to sit across from him with 2 cups of tea.
I hope you don't mind. I don't really want to be in a big crowd today.
It's fine.
He felt his pace was heating up and tried to hide even more behind his book, hoping that she wouldn't notice. It was hard to sit across from her without staring. Her eyes were down, staring at a sheet of paper as she did homework or maybe worked on a song. Shuichi couldn't tell without being more obvious in his staring, and he didn't want to do that. He was so busy watching her, wondering what she was doing, what she was thinking, that when he went to refill his tea, he overfilled his glass. Shuichi hissed and pulled his newly wet hand away, waving it in the air to try and cool the slight burn from the hot liquid.
Oh no, Shuichi! Are you okay?
Kaede moved to help him, but he shook his head, motioning for her to stay seated. Her eyebrows drew together in concern as she watched him mop up the spilled tea.
You didn't burn yourself, did you?
No, I'm fine. Just, distracted, I guess.
Kaede frowned, but took another sip of her tea once she was assured there was nothing she could do to help. He could feel her scrutinizing him. Her eyes traveled from his hands all the way up to his face. He blushed when their eyes met, then stared firmly down at the table.
You have beautiful eyes.
Shuichi nearly dropped his cup, having lifted it just moments before to wipe beneath it. As it was, he definitely spilled more tea.
What?
Oh, jeez. That's my fault, isn't it?
She gave him a sheepish smile as she stood up, reaching to take the cup from his hands and take over his duty of wiping the table.
Sorry. I didn't mean to startle you.
Shuichi thought that his brain might have short-circuited, but he managed to stutter out her response anyway.
It's fine.
His voice came out cracked and too high-pitched.
It's just...
Kaede was looking at him again, a determined expression on her face.
Your eyes are really pretty.
Shuichi really didn't know what to say to this. His face was hot and his heart was beating hard and fast. Kaede finished wiping the table and looked at him. She tried to meet his eyes, but he couldn't gaze and pull his hat down a little. She reached out to tug his hat up and off.
Don't hide them. You go through all that trouble to make your eyes look pretty, and then you don't even let anyone else see them. It's not fair.
Sorry. I mean, thank you.
He sounded like an idiot. He wished that he had a hole to hide in, or a hat to hide behind, at least.
Your eyes, also.
Kaede blushed, but the smile that lit her face was worth the embarrassment that he was feeling.
You really think so?
Yes!
His voice cracked. He was a complete mess. He might as well be the spilled tea that she needed to mop off the table. Kaede sat back in her chair, still watching him fondly.
I was really happy that I got to spend time with you, Shuichi. I always like it. Really. You make great company.
He wasn't sure how. He felt like he was always making a fool of himself. Kaede was a saint to put up with him being a stuttering mess all the time, but he was glad that she did, even if he didn't feel like he deserved it most of the time.
Sorry if this was kind of abrupt.
Kaede said, a slight blush on her own cheeks.
It's just been on my mind and I couldn't help blurting it out.
Shuichi tried to clear his throat and pull himself together a little.
For, how long?
Kaede smiled, leaning toward him.
More and more every time we hang out together.
Kaede began nervously twiddling her fingers.
When we're alone together, I almost can't think of anything else.
Shuichi reached for his cup of tea, trying to gather his courage. He wasn't sure how she could sound so calm admitting something like that. But if he wanted to be worthy of her, the least he could do was try and meet her energy. He took a long sip, hoping that it would clear his throat and his nerves both.
I, think about you too.
Kaede reaches across the table to take his hand, blushing even as she smiles at him.
I'm glad.
Shuichi would make a million confessions like that if they made her smile so brightly.
I'm glad too that I get to, spend time with you like this.
Kaede didn't stop holding his hand for the rest of the lunch hour, and he shouldn't pretend that he was able to focus on his book at all after that. And my $10 patrons are Chaotic Mist and 212th Trooper. Thank you so much for donating $10 a month to my Patreon. Hey everyone, Agent Fluffy here, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to support me even more, feel free to support my Patreon. The links are right here.